It's my great pleasure to introduce someone who has joined the Redbird team, has joined the Redbird board, and then promptly stepped over and became chairman of the board. I'd like you to get a warm welcome for Craig Fuller.
Wow, thank you very much. Thornton, I was wondering from which pot your coffee came too. What a great welcome, a great group of people. You know, Thornton said this is about change, and yes, I did make a change. I had a wonderful 48-hour retirement, and then Jerry Gregoire and his team said, why don't you come here and get involved? And I wanted to start for a minute with that because, truthfully, so much of the work of the last 5 years, when you run an organization, you're spread across the board. You're doing a little bit of everything. And I like that. But the place that I found most rewarding and fulfilling was in the area in which we were doing research to determine how to bring people into aviation, train them, continuously train them with learning programs that they found interesting and stimulating, and keep them flying. I don't need to tell this group that's a challenge. Because the world has changed, people have lots of interests, costs are a factor, but I continuously found myself stopping here in San Marcos and spending time with the Redbird folks to compare notes in terms of what we were doing at AOPA and what they were doing here. And so while the current title is new, my involvement, my interest, my engagement with the people here has been ongoing really for the last 5 years. I have a role today to talk a little bit, if I hit the right button, there we go, talk a little bit about the year. Now it's a little audacious to be here only a few weeks and review a year of progress, but it has been another year of innovation at Redbird. And I think innovation is what's keeping this company on that leading edge. It's why you keep coming back. It's what is stimulating people to try this learning devices that Redbird offers. New products have been introduced. You're going to hear more about it during the course of the morning, but I wanted to share just kind of give you a little bit of a preview of what's coming. Jeff was up here a minute ago, leads Redbird Media, and is really looking at all kinds of innovation and learning. So these contests, even though it's kind of a fun competition, the contests will give you a sense of the kind of learning capabilities that are now being developed, thought about, designed into the Redbird offerings. We're going to talk about the Red Hawk. Red Hawk 2 was on display last night. I think it's out there again today. This is taking the innovative work that goes into simulators and putting it into an aircraft that's affordable and is going to be available for flight training with features that you're going to hear about in some detail. It is exciting to see come together. Red Hawk 2 was actually, it's a rebuilt, as you know, 172. It was rebuilt right here down the way in a hangar. So the work on that is being done right here. And then, of course, back in this corner, you have the helicopter trainer. You know, Jerry and the gang heard from a number of you that helicopter training was something that really Redbird should take a look at. And like everything else they do, when they took a look at it, they came up with a pretty remarkable device. I actually saw the cockpit just a few weeks ago on the floor in Austin, in the Austin assembly area. And it was impressive then. Then I came in and saw it on that incredible moving mount that it sits atop of. And I know a number of you have tried it. We're very excited about it. There's, of course, a huge cost associated with helicopter training and remaining current in helicopters. And this device, when it becomes available, we think is going to stimulate a lot of interest and be very, very valuable to the helicopter community. I will also share with you that HAI, the Helicopter Association International, has already been talking to us about how they can be part of this launch because they're very committed to reducing accidents in helicopter flying activity, and they see this as a great tool forward. The fourth area is a special report, and yes, it's on the fuel experiment. Well, the learning experience, let me just say that Redbird Media works on is looking to find better ways of teaching, better ways of helping people learn about aviation. Jeff and his team are rethinking how to deliver content. You saw a little bit of it a minute ago. And we're also looking at ways that some of that content can be embedded inside the Redbird. Now, there are lots of images that capture some of this. We were very excited early this year to introduce the J, the Redbird J. One of the features of the Redbird J, of course, are these scenarios. The ability to fly, as I did, and listen to John King as I winged my way from San Diego to Arizona, Phoenix, I think it was really quite remarkable. I hadn't flown with John King before, but it was a good experience. Even though I sort of intentionally avoided the altitude and was reminded to pull up occasionally, having somebody there who is such a well-known instructor, where you can replicate that experience hundreds and hundreds of times, is really phenomenal. And the work that Jeff and his team have done building on that is now taking some of that capability, looking at ways of making it available in the other simulators. I mentioned the Red Hawk. This is about affordability, and I think one of the things that we're learning is that affordability in this community is vitally important. The Red Hawk will provide some of that, and there's some interesting announcements and some new ways of thinking about how to provide this to the community that you're going to be hearing about. And I mentioned the helicopter trainer. It's labeled very experimental on the side. It's also very exciting. It really is a full motion training device that we think will accelerate people's ability to transit just like they do from the simulators, the Redbird simulators today, transition to the actual helicopter and reduce the time to do those things like hovering and mastering a helicopter. So we're excited about that. My final area was this very special experiment I talked about. I like this video because it shows one of the real heroes of the $1 a gallon fuel program, which are the great guys on the line who worked, 16 hours a day or more. And we wanted to share this with you. There were a number of sponsors. We'll be sharing more information, but we wanted to share some of the highlights. I decided the only way to explain this was to use this phrase, you're traveling through another dimension, a dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind, a journey into a wondrous land whose boundaries are that of imagination. That's a signpost up ahead. Your next stop, Redbird Skyport, where avgas is $1. It truly was a bit like the Twilight Zone here. For those of you that were here and you saw people arriving in large numbers or watched it webcast, it was really remarkable. And while people waited, they waited and had a good time. They were surveyed, and some of the results of that survey is what we want to share. We want to talk about why we did it, how we did it, what happened, and some of the things that we've learned. There were these key questions. If we lowered the cost of fuel, would flying activity actually increase? And among what types of aviators would the increase come? And then, would this increase last? This last question is something, obviously, we're still going to be probing. You know, Redbird, as I said at the outset, is always interested in bringing people into flying. We're interested in finding ways to get them to be involved with continuous learning through their aviation career and then to keep them flying. So this experiment was in part to see whether we could attract people back into aviation or to increase the amount of flying they were doing. We're quite confident that happened. There were nearly 900 aircraft of those that came here that had never been to San Marcos before. There were people who came here and committed to flight training because they could work at it solidly for a month and only pay $1 a gallon for fuel, and that was the difference in whether they were going to train or not. So those kinds of findings we were excited about. So we set the price at $1. We gathered together, Redbird gathered together some 26 supporters. These are people who looked at the idea and said, yes, we want to be a part of it. And it's a great group. They're listed here. We're very grateful for the support, the financial support they gave, their interest in the project, and the fact that they're as excited and interested in learning about the findings as well. And you know, we all are involved in surveys. This is a group of people who were really motivated aviators. They really wanted to get out and do more flying. And so how they do it, we'll talk about that in a minute, and what they fly are all very important to the supporters. We picked October 1st as the date. Jerry and I were sitting around one day, and he said, I think September, and I said, I don't know, September is it's August, it's kind of fast, but, and there's this thing happening in Fort Worth in October, and then there's something else happening in San Marcos. How about October? Everybody put a lot of time into figuring out and preparing for this. October 1st, there was a line crew ready, there was extra fuel available, there were trucks standing ready, the galley had beefed up their activities, the store was ready. But honestly, it was hard to believe what happened next, because the place was swarmed by aircraft of all kinds. Over 1,000 aircraft were actually, unique aircraft, were actually fueled, and yes, some came back regularly. As I mentioned, some people chose to do their flight training here, some people based here. I think one of the first people arrived, Simon, in a Piper Cub and in a tent, and announced he was going to actually just camp out here, which the local authorities didn't think was the best idea, but he based here for a while and flew. And the team conducted over 800 interviews. They were matched with a lot of the data that we also gathered with the fueling, which gave us a lot of information to review. Now, it's certainly worth noting that this became something of a celebration. Every publication talked about it. We put up a webcam so that you could watch this, and that certainly caught people's attention. We had some visitors. Sean D. Tucker showed up, Jack, with the Young Eagles program to fly over the course of a weekend, and this guy, as you know, never stops. He had a line of people out flying, and yes, he bought his gas for $1 a gallon, and so that was very, very helpful. Social media discovered the event, so suddenly this view of the ramp out there was being broadcast around the world through Facebook in this case, and other forms of social media, which was, I guess, another great development from the standpoint that a lot of people began to tune in to some good news, something that was positive that was happening in general aviation. Well, I think in so many ways the results validate the importance of affordability. The savings clearly incented training, it incented flying that may have been deferred or brought people out who had not done a lot of flying. It demonstrated that this aspiration to fly is very much alive. I began popping on some of the national surveys that we would take the question of, one day would you like to fly an airplane? Simple question. We would survey voters about various attitudes, but this question really caught our attention because extrapolating the answer that we got to that suggests there are millions of people with the aspiration to fly. And it's our challenge to figure out how to tap into it. What were some of the interesting things we learned along the way? Well, we had all kinds of aircraft here. I think we did have a few Cessna 182s, that's the leading line up there, that came repeatedly. Simon Piper was second. We had Mooney's, we had Beechcraft. We had all kinds of folks coming in over the course of what became 15 days. We had a wide range of pilot experiences. The blue here this is by gallons pumped and type of pilot. So private pilot is up here in blue, commercial is red, and green is ATP. Student pilots up there is a small wedge, and a few sport and recreational pilots. You know, and they came from one hangar away and as far away as South Africa, I think, was the gentleman who came the furthest. He confessed he didn't actually fly here, but he came here to see what was going on in a general aviation aircraft. But you know, whether it's 9 miles away or 50 miles away, or all the way up to 1,000 miles away, this map gives you a sense of the individual airports from which people actually traveled. So it was not just aircraft in the neighborhood, but really drew from actually an international crowd. We asked them how they plan their flights. You know, we stripped off some of the names here, but Tyson and our friends at ForeFlight should feel very good. That's the blue area. Again, we've all looked at a lot of surveys, but this is a unique group of pilots, people who were actually, excited about flying and coming and participating in this program, as you saw, from all over the country. So very high utilization of the iPad. The second, coming in second, is paper, non-electronic flight planning systems, and then the rest of the organizations that offer flight planning on the iPad or other electronic device follow. We ask pilots what they read. I think my friends at AOPA will be pleased to be in the leading bars, but the truth is what this chart shows is a very wide range. This is both print and electronic media that from which people are consuming information, and it's a very wide and diverse variety of publications. And then we ask them about social media, Facebook and YouTube. YouTube, I think, is the most popular in general, but Facebook among our crowd beat that out a little bit. And not so much on the others, but again, some representation among the other social media outlets. The question that remains is, how has this changed people's behavior? Well, people were very good, those we surveyed, to give us their email addresses, and we're going to follow up with them and find out. We want to know whether they, in fact, are flying more. Did they become more committed to general aviation through this experience? And how did the experience affect them and their flying? Will they continue to fly additional flights? The experiment, I hope, captured a lot of people's imagination. It was successful faster than anybody would have imagined, which is why after 15 days and 90,000 gallons of fuel, we said, okay, we've got as much data as we can gather, and we're out of gas. And we were wearing out some very good people. But it does demonstrate that people are anxious to do more in aviation, anxious to fly more in aviation. It was a very bold idea from Jerry, and it was executed exceptionally well by this team. My view and our view is, of course, however, that our work is just beginning, because the real challenge is to bring more of these people out more often, to do more flying, to do more training from folks like you, and if we can do that, we'll all be successful. I very much look forward to being with you throughout the time here, and have had a number of great conversations. Hope we get a chance to have some more as we go. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for listening.